Albert Einstein's name is often spoken with a sense of wonder. Today, his image floats in our minds as the wild-haired genius who unlocked secrets of the universe. But what if I told you his story did not begin with brilliance? What if I told you that, in his earliest years, Albert Einstein was thought to be slow, even strange, by those around him? His journey is far from the straight path of a prodigy. It is instead a tale of persistence, curiosity, and imagination that forever changed how we see the world. Albert was born in the small German city of Ulm in 1879. His family was Jewish, not particularly wealthy, but loving and stable. His father, Hermann Einstein, ran a modest business in electrical equipment. His mother, Pauline, loved music and carried an almost stubborn determination for her children's education. From the very beginning, though, Albert stood apart. As a baby, he was slow to speak. Family friends even wondered if something was wrong with him. He would sometimes pause, silently, repeating words under his breath before daring to say them aloud. This delay in speech became known as his speech problem, and it worried his parents deeply. Yet while others saw a problem, Albert was quietly developing an inner world. He preferred to be alone, playing with building blocks or staring for hours at patterns in nature. One of the most famous moments in his childhood came when his father handed him a simple gift, a small compass. Albert was transfixed. How could a needle move and point north with no visible force? What invisible hand guided it? That tiny object lit a fire inside him, a curiosity about the unseen forces of the world, which would never leave him. School, however, was not kind to young Albert. Teachers considered him a misfit. He disliked rote memorization, the endless chanting of facts without meaning. When scolded, he often retreated into thought rather than compliance. One teacher even declared he would never amount to much. Imagine that, Einstein, told he was destined for nothing. Yet his rebellion against strict schooling was not laziness, it was the mind of a thinker who demanded to understand, not merely recite. Music became another refuge. His mother, determined that her son would develop discipline, insisted he learn the violin. At first, Albert resisted, bored by the exercises. But as he grew older, he discovered joy in Mozart's melodies. Playing the violin became a lifelong passion, a source of comfort in moments of doubt and a rhythm that matched his own search for harmony in science. Adolescence brought new challenges. The Einstein family moved to Munich for better opportunities in business. But Hermann's electrical company soon failed. Financial trouble pushed them to relocate to Italy. Albert, however, was left behind to finish school in Germany. He felt abandoned and suffocated. German education was strict, almost militaristic, demanding obedience. Einstein could not bear it. At 16, he made a bold choice. He left school without graduating, joining his family in Italy. To many, this looked like failure. To Albert, it was liberation. Still, he knew he needed formal training if he was to pursue his burning questions about nature. He applied to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, one of the finest technical schools in Europe. At first, he failed the entrance exam. His grades in non-scientific subjects were too poor. Yet his exceptional performance in mathematics and physics caught the eye of the administrators. They encouraged him to continue his studies, and after additional preparation, Albert gained admission. In Zurich, he found an environment more suited to his independent spirit. At the Polytechnic, Albert did not become a model student. He skipped classes that bored him and studied alone the works of great physicists. He read voraciously, pushing beyond the curriculum. His professors often grew frustrated with his disregard for tradition. Yet beneath their annoyance, a storm was brewing, a storm of ideas that would one day reshape science. During these years, Albert also experienced the stirrings of love. He met Mileva Maric, a fellow student from Serbia. Mileva was intelligent, ambitious, and determined to succeed in a male-dominated field. The two bonded over late-night discussions about physics and dreams of discovery. Their connection deepened into romance, despite opposition from Albert's family, who disapproved of Mileva's background. For Albert, however, love and science became intertwined, but life was not easy after graduation. While his classmates found teaching jobs or academic posts, Albert struggled. He applied repeatedly for positions but faced rejection after rejection. Professors who had disliked his rebellious attitude withheld recommendations. He drifted, living in poverty, tutoring students for meager pay. Mileva stood by him, but tension grew as the weight of financial hardship pressed down. Then came a turning point. In 1902, Albert secured a job at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. It was not glamorous. He spent his days examining patent applications for inventions, many of them trivial. Yet this mundane job became a blessing. The routine tasks left him with time to think, to dream, to scribble equations on scraps of paper during breaks. In the evenings, he gathered with a small circle of friends, calling themselves the Olympia Academy. They debated philosophy, science, and the mysteries of the universe late into the night. These discussions sharpened Albert's ideas and gave him confidence in his unorthodox thinking. Meanwhile, his personal life shifted again. He and Mileva married, and soon they welcomed children. Albert, now balancing work, family, and his restless pursuit of knowledge, lived in a world of quiet intensity. Outwardly, he was just a clerk. Inwardly, he was preparing to revolutionize physics. The year 1905 would later be called Einstein's miracle year. But to understand its magnitude, we must first understand the forces pressing on him. For years, scientists had struggled to explain inconsistencies in physics. The old Newtonian view of the universe, precise, orderly, mechanical, was breaking under new discoveries. Light behaved like a wave in some experiments, but like a particle in others. Time and space, once thought absolute, were showing strange flexibility under close examination. Questions piled up, awaiting someone bold enough to connect the dots. Albert, working quietly in Bern, began to write. He submitted not one, not two, but a series of papers that would shatter the foundations of science. In these papers, he proposed daring ideas, that light itself was made of particles, that motion and time were relative to the observer, that energy and mass were connected in a way no one had imagined before. Each of these insights was revolutionary. Together, they announced the arrival of a new way of seeing reality. Albert Einstein's miracle year had arrived, though the world did not yet know it. In the modest walls of his Bern apartment, with a violin resting near his desk and his children's voices occasionally drifting through the air, he was preparing to rewrite the very language of the universe. The year was 1905, and Albert was still a clerk at the patent office, considered by many to be a man of little consequence. Yet in that one year, he produced work so astonishing that the entire scientific world would soon tremble with excitement, confusion, and wonder. The first of his groundbreaking papers suggested something almost unthinkable, that light, long regarded as a wave, could also behave as if it were made of discrete packets of energy. He called these quanta. This idea challenged the very heart of physics, offering a way to explain phenomena that baffled scientists for decades. It was a bold challenge to established wisdom, and though not immediately embraced, it opened the door to what would later become quantum theory. Then came his paper on the motion of tiny particles suspended in liquid, known as Brownian motion. Though it may have seemed an obscure topic, it carried within it profound implications. Einstein's explanation provided clear evidence for the existence of atoms, something many scientists still debated at the time. With a few pages of careful reasoning, Albert gave the world a new way to see matter itself, but the most revolutionary of all was his work on relativity. He proposed that time and space were not absolute. They shifted depending on motion, bending to the perspective of the observer. In one stroke, the certainty of Newton's universe gave way to a flexible, dynamic cosmos. And hidden within this theory was a simple equation, elegant and terrifying in its implications: energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. It was a formula that revealed energy and matter as two faces of the same coin, a truth that would change both science and human history. News of his ideas spread slowly at first. The papers were dense, mathematical, challenging. Only a handful of scientists grasped their importance immediately. But whispers began. A patent clerk in Switzerland, with no university position and no laboratory, had produced work that rivaled the greatest minds of the age. By the end of that year, Einstein was no longer obscure. He was becoming a name spoken with awe. As his fame grew, so did the pressures in his personal life. His marriage with Mileva, once filled with late-night discussions and dreams, began to strain. The demands of raising children, financial struggles, and Albert's increasing immersion in his work created distance between them. Mileva, who had once been his intellectual partner, found herself pushed aside as Albert pursued his ideas relentlessly. Their love story, once bright, dimmed under the weight of reality, yet the world around Albert was opening its arms. Invitations arrived from universities, scientific journals, and international conferences. He left the patent office and began an academic career, first as a lecturer, then as a professor. He moved from Zurich to Prague, and later back to Zurich, before settling in Berlin. Each new position brought him closer to the center of European science. The quiet patent clerk had become a rising star. In Berlin, his life took dramatic turns. He reconnected with his cousin, Elsa, who would later become his second wife. He also became increasingly visible to the public, not only for his science but for his personality. With his unkempt hair, absent-minded charm, and passion for truth, he fascinated journalists and the public alike. Soon, his theories, once dismissed as radical, began to shape the very foundations of physics. Then came 1915, when Einstein unveiled his greatest masterpiece, the general theory of relativity. Building on his earlier work, he proposed that gravity was not a force in the traditional sense but rather the bending of space and time itself. Massive objects curved the fabric of the cosmos, and everything moved along those curves. It was a vision of the universe more beautiful, more strange, than anyone had ever imagined. For years, the theory remained a bold idea awaiting proof. That proof arrived in 1919, during a solar eclipse. Astronomers observed the bending of starlight around the sun, exactly as Einstein had predicted. The headlines the next day were explosive. Einstein had dethroned Newton. He was hailed as the new giant of science, and almost overnight, he became one of the most famous men on Earth. With fame came a new life. Newspapers followed him, crowds gathered wherever he went, and his name became synonymous with genius. Yet beneath the applause lay challenges. His marriage with Mileva officially ended, and he built a new family life with Ilse. The political climate in Germany darkened as well. Anti-Semitism grew, and Albert, a proud Jew, faced increasing hostility. Despite his fame, he felt the shadow of danger. When Adolf Hitler rose to power, Einstein made a choice. He left Germany, never to return. He accepted a position at Princeton University in the United States. There, in a quiet office at the Institute for Advanced Study, he spent the rest of his career. America became his home, and he found peace walking the leafy streets of Princeton, violin in hand, lost in thought, yet the world outside was anything but peaceful. The Second World War erupted, and with it came fears that his famous equation, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, could unlock terrifying weapons. Einstein, a lifelong pacifist, was horrified. Yet he signed a letter to President Roosevelt warning that Nazi Germany might develop such a weapon first. That letter would eventually lead to the Manhattan Project and the creation of the atomic bomb. Though Einstein himself did not work on the bomb, his connection to the discovery haunted him for the rest of his life. In his later years, Einstein became not just a scientist but a moral voice. He spoke against fascism, racism, and war. He defended civil rights in America, standing alongside black leaders in their fight for equality. He also wrestled with scientific questions that continued to elude him. While the world moved toward quantum mechanics, Einstein resisted, famously declaring, "God does not play dice with the universe." He searched in vain for a unified theory that would reconcile the laws of nature, a dream he never achieved. Despite the disappointments, he remained beloved. Children adored his kind face and gentle humor. Students marveled at his brilliance, even when they struggled to follow his ideas. And the public, though not always able to understand his equations, admired the man who seemed to embody wisdom itself. Einstein's final years were quiet but profound. He lived simply in Princeton, walking to his office, playing his violin, corresponding with friends and colleagues around the world. When offered political power, even the presidency of Israel, he declined, saying he lacked the natural gifts of leadership. He preferred instead the life of thought, of reflection, of quiet pursuit. In April of 1955, Albert Einstein passed away at the age of 76. Even on his deathbed, he asked for notes and papers, still chasing the mysteries of the cosmos. He left behind not only scientific revolutions but a legacy of courage, humility, and relentless curiosity. Albert Einstein's story is more than the tale of a genius. It is a reminder that greatness is not born perfect. He began life misunderstood, dismissed, even doubted. Yet by following his curiosity, by refusing to surrender to convention, he discovered truths that forever changed humanity. His journey from a silent child staring at a compass to the world's most celebrated thinker is a story of wonder, resilience, and imagination. And if you've enjoyed this journey with me, remember, I share stories like this every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.